All right, everyone. So we are go ahead and get started. Thank y'all for joining us today. We want to definitely welcome all of our new and returning members. We're not too sure how many of you were able to join in for our first general meeting of the semester, which took place last Thursday. If you did, thank you for joining us. And if not, we do have that video uploaded on YouTube if you want to recap of some of the things that you have to look forward to this semester and more specifically this month. So today we're going to start off with just a few announcements. I'm going to hand the mic over to Alexa, and then we will come back and get started with our event for today.
Hi guys, so again, just to echo off of Elise, we just want to welcome you guys. Thank you for coming by. As far as announcements go, we just want to share that we are having our weekly challenge going on our Instagram, where we just want you guys to show us how you get your morning movement in, whether it's through exercise, taking a walk with the dogs. I usually walk my dog in the morning, really early in the morning, because it's too hot to do it any other time. So go ahead and follow us on Instagram, check out that challenge and show us a little bit. Other than that, I'm gonna hand it back to Elise and get started.
Thank you. So another thing, so I want to also make you all aware about PECs. Is everybody aware of our PECs lab on campus? Maybe like a thumbs up or something like that, and then we'll see some head nods. So with our PECs lab, we also have PECs lab meetings. And I'm not too sure if a lot of people know about this, but it's open to undergraduate students and graduate students. And what's really cool about it is it provides us an opportunity to just talk to some of the instructors, particularly Escobar, Dr. Escobar, Dr. Schick, and Dr. Cotter. They oftentimes join us and allow us to have a candid conversation about things that are going on in our academics. But outside of that, we have a journal club within that within those meetings, right? So we have students who present different topics on different journal articles that they may have read. And we get sometimes advice for those of us who may be working on like a master thesis or something for your undergraduate. It's a good opportunity, a good informal opportunity to just get feedback, presentation practice, just have conversation about what's going on and what's popping, you know what I mean, in kinesiology news or whatnot. So that meeting will be taking place tomorrow at 4 p.m. It's separate from exercise medicine, but it'll be taking place tomorrow at 4 p.m. And hopefully we could provide that information in the Zoom. Sophia, I see you are on. If you don't mind, if I could call you out to provide that information in the chat for us. And if not, I'll go ahead and maybe see if we can provide it at the very end for you all. All right, and so to officially get started, so today's event is regarding professions in kinesiology. That is our theme for the month of professions in health and wellness. And today we're going to be talking about some professions that are a little bit outside the box. So we have Jonathan, who you see here on the screen, who's noted as John, who goes by John, who is an occupational therapist and also certified in ergonomics, will be speaking with us today, as well as Laura Coleman. She's not on the call right now. However, she'll be joining us around 5:30. She's just wrapping up with a patient. So she'll be talking to us about some things within her field, and then we're going to wrap up the conversation with an exciting topic that I believe it is, which is esports and gaming, and just the different professions that you could get into from a health and wellness perspective. So for right now, I'll go ahead and pass the microphone to John. He has a presentation to show you, and then we'll have a couple slides to show from him, from Laura, and then myself. So John, you can take it away.
Let's start with the next slide. Just a little bit about me. Graduated from UC Irvine with a psychology degree in 2012, and then took some time to find out what I wanted to do. And then I graduated from Dominguez Hills with a master's in occupational therapy. Just kind of a quick thing about me. This year I started working at Braille Institute. So that's like 7 jobs later. I really like this job. I'll tell you more about it down the road, but it's a nonprofit and I really think it aligns with how I see things. Besides all that academic stuff, I do believe in community, helping others. And I met Elise through the CSU-DH Esports. I reached out to them to see if I could volunteer, help them out because I had some background in hand therapy as well as ergonomics, and just wanted to see what they're doing. So now we've collaborated, and they're building a lot of things. And so there's going to be a lot of things for us in the future. So I'm pretty excited about that. Next slide. So the first thing is, what's OT? And so, yeah, you have to click all of those. Sorry, I just made it fancy like that.
No, that's okay. I got the pattern now.
So a lot of people don't know what OT is, right? So the joke is, well, maybe it's like a long lost cousin of PT. Then you have other people who will say, and this is a little bit biased toward OT, PTs can help people walk, but if you want to learn how to dance, that's OTs that do it, just to kind of make us a little bit more functional. That's how people describe it. But I'll be honest, when I was volunteering at the Children's Hospital in San Antonio, Texas, I actually saw the PT. It was hard for the PT to help the client walk. So she actually put on Prince Royce. It's like a singer, and actually used dance to facilitate some movement. So I just want you guys to know PT, OT, the definitions, and they say what they can do, it overlaps quite a lot. The third point is under AOTA, which is our OT organization. This is our legit definition. It's to help people across the lifespan participate in the things they want and need to do through the therapeutic use of everyday activities, occupations. You can see it's a mouthful. It's a little bit confusing. So I kind of simplified things and wanted you guys to think of OT more as holistic. We might think about the physical impairments, psychological, social part. And what we like to do is adapt the environment to the person to get whatever needs to be done. And it's also multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary, meaning you want to tell me something, I'm open to it. But if I have any advice for you when we're working together as a team, working on a client or a patient, we're definitely there for each other. There's no strong boundaries like you can't talk about that, that's mine. There's a lot of overlap. And that's why with me and Elise, we do have a lot of overlap when we talk about esports. And so it's actually really fun. And that way we really, again, care about the person that we're focusing on, which would be the client, or in that case, the esport players. Next slide. So what do we do? And this is, again, taken from our OT organization website. These are 3 examples I think might make it a little bit more clear on what we do. So the first one is we can help kids with disabilities participate in school and social situations. So for example, if a kid has like autism spectrum disorder, ASD, they're going to have a hard time using maybe scissors to cut. And so they'll have something where it's actually called dissociation. So when they're cutting with their scissor, their body is still connected. So when they cut, they actually open their mouth as they cut because it's still associated and we need to dissociate it. So those are things that we can kind of work on, as well as some of the social situations that they need to understand in order to succeed in school. Another more obvious one is if someone gets injured, we help them recover whatever skills they need, whether to go back into society or to get back to work. And the last one is more about older adults. The fact that, when you get to an age, there's also cognitive changes, a lot of dementia, Alzheimer's, and some of the strategies that we might use in helping them maintain their independence. Next slide. So I like to break down the settings for you. Where can OTs work? More commonly, it's where you might find PTs. So if you go to a hospital, chances are there's going to be PTs, OTs, speech therapists, right? Nurses. We can also work in the outpatient clinic, whether it be working with kids or even working in hand therapy. Pediatrics, I would think, is a pretty big stronghold for OTs. So if any of you guys have a kines background and you're like, I kind of like working with kids, you should consider OT because it's written in the law that when kids, again, have any type of special needs, we are required to provide them OT at school. So again, that's just a really good way to have a job that's stable. We definitely have a lot of baby boomers. And so with the nursing home, with home health, it's always going to be a tremendous need. And that's where a lot of us work too. And the last place I wrote is hand therapy. That's definitely where I spent some time. Anyone that's injured from the fingertip all the way up to your neck, that's definitely something that can fall under hand therapy. And we do our best to recover you back to where you are. Maybe you've been writing too much and you're getting cramps, or you're writing too much and you're getting a little numbness. That's where you go to hand therapy, and we can help resolve some of that nerve issues. On the other side, I have more of the less common settings. These are kind of our interesting, maybe lucky settings that you can get into. I personally worked in hospice. It's a pretty low key area. Hospice, right, requires a diagnosis of a terminal illness, right, 6 months or less. So you might think, well, what's therapy got to do with that if someone's going to pass, right? That's where the definition of therapy and rehab changes, and we're thinking more about their quality of life and helping more with the family and getting them ready for what's to come. Another place that's blowing up right now, I would say, is low vision. Again, I'm very fortunate to work for Braille Institute. So I'm working with people who have macular degeneration, glaucoma, you name it. And it's been a really wonderful process, I think, there where I'm not in the reimbursement or the insurance model. And so I can really take my time to help clients. Now, you see the driving rehab part. That's interesting because, with a bunch of baby boomers, maybe they have some type of injury, maybe they had a stroke, maybe they had some type of thing, but they want to come back to driving. OTs, if you get trained, you can actually help people get back to driving. You can even consider modifying their car. So it's a really cool place, very niche, I gotta say, very, very few people in it. Even more rare, hippotherapy, that's equestrian therapy. So if you like horseback riding, if any of you guys have any background in it, that's actually a legit form of therapy, using horseback riding to facilitate a lot of that vestibular, proprioception, that type of input. I don't know of any hippotherapy companies here, but I know that in Riverside there are. So hopefully when I'm talking to you guys about this, you can think about kines. Well, maybe I'm not interested in OT, but man, John's talking about all these different settings. Those settings sound interesting to me. Maybe I might not do OT, but maybe I'll kind of go into it because in a way it's still very hands-on and I can help people get better. Assistive technology, I mean, wheelchairs. Some people drive a wheelchair with their head. So if they kind of push back, it's forward. If they let go of the pad in the back of their head, it stops. Some people even have a straw. You blow into the straw and it moves the wheelchair. Now, I know I see some comments about some goat. I'm like, what? Goat therapy? I haven't heard of that. And then the last one is ergonomics. I mean, that's definitely a passion of Elise and mine. And it's just about posture. Can we go to these Fortune 500? Can we go to Google where everyone's working 10, 12 hours, kind of jammed up in their computer and just typing as fast as they can? Can we go there and jump in front before the injury happens? Do we have any suggestions looking at them holistically? Okay, so I hope that kind of gives you, it's basically telling you OTs, we work everywhere, right? But just know that there are more common areas, and there's places where if you get lucky and right timing, right place, right time, and you're competent, maybe you can get the job in more of the less common area. Next slide. So like I said, I graduated from CSUDH. I pulled this directly from the website just to let you guys know, hey, these prereqs aren't so bad compared to PT, So you just got to get your bachelor's. Anatomy you got to have. Psychology, it's not too many, right? This is specifically for CSUDH. 80 hours, so you can volunteer any type of setting that I just outlined, right? Just to kind of get a sense of it. 3 letters of rec and GRE, and that's basically what you need. You can just tell from the prereqs what the focus of OT is, right? It's not stacked on chemistry and biology and physics, but it's not stacked in 100% psychology. So you can see, in a way, having kind of a little bit of anatomy, physiology, having a little bit of understanding of psychology. You can see how it blends. That is what we hope for in OT, to blend both realms. Next slide. I kind of broke down the good and the bad. At least I don't know if I told you about this one. So the good with OT, what's so good about it? It's hands-on. That's what immediately drew me to this. Okay. And I believe a lot of healthcare, volunteering in a PT clinic, yes, it does. It counts for it, but you most likely want to be shadowing the OT. And just so you guys know, there are many settings where the PT and OT are there, working side by side. And that's where I was for my hand therapy clinic. Okay. Feel free to keep up with the questions. Hopefully I addressed them. Now, with the good, I wanted to say, I mean, when you guys come out with a kines background, I believe you guys want to be hands-on. I believe you guys would like that one-on-one, maybe coaching too. But in terms of OT, I did see that. I also see a lot of the therapists were working on the clients day by day, week by week. I can see the differences in front of my eyes, and that's what I wanted because it's going to keep me motivated. Another thing is the variety of settings. Some people will argue, you know what, OT trumps all, because if you get sick of working with older folks, you can work with kids. I want to, try equestrian therapy. I want to work with horses. Oh, I can't find a job there. Okay, then let me switch to this. Let me jump around, right? So it definitely can work like that. And one other thing is that it's definitely a good starting salary. I think a lot of healthcare professions have a good starting salary. Just know that in hand, okay? Now let's look more at the right? Difficult to define. You hear me talk about OT this way, you go talk to someone else about it, they might say some other stuff. They'll be like, well, OT, we do the upper body, PTs do lower body. Or they'll just say what I told you, PTs can only teach you how to walk, but we teach people how to dance. Everyone's got a different definition on it. It's fun to talk to you guys about it like that, but you can see that as a profession, that might not be so good, because when you're going to Washington, D.C., right, and you're trying to advocate for more like OTs can do this or that, a lot of people will hear occupational therapy and they'll be like, so what do you do? I mean, do you help me find a job? Right? So I have to have a lot of those conversations, and I think that takes away from how good that profession is. Versus if you say speech therapy, I know what you do. I have some slight slurring. Maybe I had a stroke and I'm unable to enunciate. I'm going to go see you for speech therapy. I have a wound, right? I'm mostly going to see a nurse. I need a walk. I'm going to go to the PT. But unless you're versed in OT, a lot of people will not know to come to us. And when I say the low ceiling, you gotta take it with the good and the bad. You start with a good starting salary, but when I say low ceiling, it means when you think about rehab therapy specifically, let's say I become real seasoned at doing what I do. What's the next step I can go? Maybe a director of rehab. Okay. What's the next step? So if a clinic has like 20 clinicians, therapists, there's only one director of rehab. You can see how it's hard to make kind of that jump. And it's very hard, I think, in my opinion, to go more of a lateral jump. So if I'm working here exclusively with productivity and working on clients with my hands, if I want to switch to an admin job, it's going to be very hard to, the overlap of like my skills is very hard to tell them like, hey, I'm really good at these type of programs on the computer, which I'm not, because I'm good with my hands. I'm really good at feeling if there's tenderness, if there's numbness, all these different tests that I do. They don't always translate to another type of job, okay? So that's just something to keep in mind. Elise, how are we doing in terms of time?
We're doing fair. You think you could maybe knock the rest out in like 10 minutes or less?
Okay, so we're doing pretty good. Thanks. I pulled some pictures. I just wanted a slide to show you when I was working in hand therapy, how excited I was about it. And maybe I can get you guys excited with your kines background, getting you guys to think. So I was definitely at a clinic where there was PTs on the other side and OTs were on this side, and we specialized in hand therapy. PTs don't really have to worry as much because they get so many clients from the neck down, right? All types of issues. So we specifically focused on those that were injured at work. We call it workers' comp or work comp. So something I might do is if you come injured for the first time, we'll do an evaluation. I'll do a lot of tests to kind of figure out what's working and what's not working. But when it comes to a typical treatment, that's what I've outlined also under. We might start with a warm-up, like a literal warm-up. If your hands are stiff, if they're numb, if they're tender, what we'll do is we'll actually dip your hand in paraffin wax. So if you look at the top right, I mean, that one, the paraffin wax is purple. That's super cool. Usually ours is white, and maybe it'll be scented. I haven't worked with a purple one. But you basically dip the client's hand up and down, and it ranges from every clinic, right? We do 5 times, and I take it slow. So you're adding layer after layer of paraffin wax. It's kind of like making a candle. And it's a really good way to insulate the heat. And then we'll wrap it with a plastic bag and then wrap it with additional heat. Because again, heat can kind of increase mobility, right? Range of motion. So we'll start with that. After, we might work with some stretches. We might talk about some exercises, just like the gentleman above who's doing more of that row, working on the scapular strengthening exercises. We might work on education. If you see that guy in his underwear, that definitely is not good ergonomics, not long-term good ergonomics. And the last thing we might do is what we consider a cool down. You can ice the client, or in that picture that I have is Easton, right? Using some type of, a lot of people do find some benefit from using these modalities, even if it's short term. But that's basically kind of a summary of what I do in hand therapy. I really like it because in therapy, I believe people really trust me and I get to tell you what to do. Next slide. That's definitely not me. That's my coworker, but that was a video, but it looks like at least maybe the video won't work.
Yeah, I don't think it'll.
Everyone's just like, okay, thank you for that random picture. That's my coworker. His name is also John, but he's in the LA location. So I had a real fun video just to kind of tell you what I do currently at my job at Braille Institute. But because it's not working, I'll let you know what I do in this nonprofit. It's been
have you shared? Because I know the PowerPoint was kind of giving you troubles, but if you have the video, we could probably share it after you kind of go through everything if you like.
Oh, sure. If we have time, I just want to make sure we're good on time.
Okay, cool.
At Braille Institute, I want you guys to think of a triangle. And right now, as an occupational therapist, I'm really lucky that I'm at the front of the triangle. So if any client wants services, they have to first go through me, in which I basically do an evaluation, right? Okay, you're having trouble reading, or you're really light sensitive, or you're interested in a white cane because you're starting to bump into a lot of things. I ask these concerns and I try to pair these concerns with our services. So I'm really lucky I'm at the front and I basically let you into our organization. It's nonprofit, so I really can lean into, I guess, my advantages and just what I prefer, just the way I like to work. And so hopefully the video I show you guys at the end will be kind of like a fun summary of what I do at Braille Institute. Yeah, next slide. So I have this quote from my dad that says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. But he stole that from Steve Jobs. But what that means for you guys is, I understand you guys are, Kines undergrad, open to what's out there. For some people, we see that they have more of a linear path in terms of finding their profession, especially with social media, right? You can really see how other people have it all. But again, I really do believe in this quote that you're going to do the best you can. And only when you look back on life, you can kind of see, it might not be straight, but it'll be relatively a little bit more zigzag, but it will be going into a particular direction. So you do need to believe that you are doing the right thing. So hopefully that was inspiring quote, at least. And that is my presentation for the OT part. Man, I look pale, huh? Okay, let me get a little close.
Thank you.
Do we want to, okay, yeah, no problem, Elise.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, how long was the video? Was it just like a short clip? Do you think you might be able to pull it up if you go to
It's so funny. It's like a minute and a half of kind of just like me explaining what we do at Braille.
Okay.
And,
yeah, I think we have time.
And I just cut it off when it's like my coworker's turn. It's just all about me,
Okay, yeah, I think we have time. I think the reason why I didn't play is because when I opened it, just trying to move quickly, I didn't open the downloaded version. So if you want to share your screen and go to that slide, I think I'll probably play from yours.
Okay, technology, please work. Let's try it. Share screen. Share it. But will there be volume though?
It should be. I think you just have to turn yours up.
But it's to my headphones though.
So let's try.
What do you guys think? If it doesn't have sound, it's going to be so ridiculous.
Yeah, we can't hear it.
It's like, all right.
Is it on YouTube by chance?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Okay, how about this? Copy and paste it, drop it in the chat, and then I encourage everybody to watch it in your own time afterwards.
This is too good. Hey, everyone, this is how you not do a presentation, huh? Let me see if I can pop it in the chat.
Cool.
But, for people who are interested in the nonprofit route, I do suggest you guys not just look at the video, but just think about, well, I want to do healthcare, but if there's nonprofit options with less productivity, it might speak to certain people's personalities. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect, thank you, John. So what we're gonna do next, first let's give it up to John. Thank you. So what we're gonna do next, I'm gonna see if we'll take like just maybe 2 questions and then we'll get into Laura's presentation because I do see Laura's on. So hi, Laura. So does anybody have any questions? And if not, we'll have a large opportunity for questions and answers at the end, but just to kind of get any pressing ones off if anybody wants to raise their hand and ask anything. If not, we can just keep it going. I'll give it a few seconds just in case. Alrighty, in the meantime, Laura, I would like to introduce you and give you a minute to kind of prep your screen. So just so everybody knows, Laura also has a presentation that she's going to show as well. So she works in orthotics and prosthetics, which is really cool and exciting. And she'll be able to provide you guys with some information regarding her background, what she does currently, and just some overall information. So I don't want to get too much into it. I will let Laura do all the work in that aspect. So Laura, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. Sorry I was a little bit late here. I had a patient run a little late, but that's okay. Tends to happen. All right, so let me share my screen here. Maybe we'll just try to do it this way. All right, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so my name is Laura Coleman. I am currently a resident. I got my degree in kinesiology and physiology for my bachelor's degree. That was all the way back over in a super tiny college in Southern Indiana called Hanover. And then I moved out to California for my master's degree to get that in prosthetics and orthotics. And let me move you guys just in case you can't see. All right, so a lot of people will hear me say, I'm a prosthetist, orthotist. First off, they look at me weird because they think I'm saying something else. Second off, then they say, what does that even mean? Those are big words, it's a mouthful, what does that even entail? So prosthetics are just the making and fitting of artificial body parts. So you're talking legs, arms. I don't personally do this, but you'll see people who will get prosthetic noses or prosthetic ears or eyes. Whereas orthotics is the making and fitting of artificial devices such as splints and braces. So if you guys have ever seen Forrest Gump and seen the braces that he wears, that's part of my job. He's wearing what we call knee, ankle, foot orthoses. Got to get myself out of the way here. All right. So what we do on a daily basis is we'll have a patient come in, we evaluate the patient's biomechanical abilities, see what kind of range of motion they have, see what kind of muscle strength they have, which is probably, unfortunately, I missed the first presentation, but it's probably something that John touched on earlier. But we evaluate them and then we determine what the best orthotic or prosthetic intervention is going to be to increase their mobility, as well as their functionality as well. From there, we end up taking a cast, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and then we end up making the prosthetic or orthotic device. And then we have the patient come back, we fit the patient. Sometimes it's a little bit of back and forth, especially with prosthetics. It's never a one size fits all, get them out the door. That takes quite a few weeks to really tune it in and get that proper alignment down. And then after we actually deliver the device, we always see them for different follow-ups, different adjustments. It all just depends on what they need in that time. And they can come back to us, years later and say, oh, hey, I need that, I have some redness on my ankle. Can you try to fix this? And then it's back to troubleshooting to fix that problem. And on the right here, that is a prosthetic leg. That's an above knee amputation. So that's one of the first legs that I made in my career, which is really exciting. I get to go forward. All right, as I mentioned earlier, actually I kind of came into John's presentation on this one. He said it's usually not a linear course of getting to where you want to be, and I am the example of that. So earlier I mentioned I have my Bachelor of Arts in Kinesiology and Physiology. I do have a minor in philosophy. During my senior year, I ended up doing an internship with a place called All Kids Can Physical, Occupational, and Speech Therapy. So I got a really big variety of different things. I thought I wanted to go into physical therapy, so that's the main reason why I pursued that internship. But once I got there, I noticed I connected with it, but I just didn't love it. Something was just missing. And I think it was the hands-on exposure of actually working with a device, it's kind of like working with a piece of art. And I took art classes throughout all of high school, throughout all of college. So that was something very important to me, that I wanted to be doing hands-on stuff and being able to make things custom for somebody. So I started thinking, well, maybe physical therapy, occupational therapy, maybe that's not the direction that's for me. So I immediately panicked and didn't know what to do. I started freaking out, as I know that some of you can probably relate to that. But it's okay. You just take a step back, take a breather, do a little bit of Googling. What actually ended up happening is we had an orthotist come into All Kids Can Physical and Occupational Therapy. And I was really interested in the braces that he was making for these kids. Let me pull up the chat here. I see that somebody typed. Very relatable. Yes, very relatable. But we had an orthotist come in. He was coming by to make some orthotic devices for some of the kids there, who a lot of the kids had cerebral palsy. And I was like, oh, those are so cool. They're very adjustable. If they ever had problems, it was as simple as taking a blowtorch to it and just heating up the area and pushing it out a little bit. And then they were on their way again without pain. So I really like that. I really like their creativity that you could do within the field. So then I started looking into it and I said, I'm a senior. I have already picked my classes and I'm missing prereqs. So I did take 2 years off between my undergrad and graduate school. And a lot of that was me working. I worked a full-time job. That was just trying to save money because I knew that I was going to have to move somewhere. It was also taking prerequisites for grad school. And then I was also retaking some classes because, as a lot of you can also probably relate, I did not do well my freshman year of college. So I had to retake some of my classes just to boost my GPA and make my application look a lot better. As well as all three of those things, I also did some shadowing and volunteering at a bunch of different orthotic and prosthetic clinics around where I was working, just to get a little bit more experience under my belt. Once I got all that done, I took the GRE, I applied, and I got denied from every school that I applied to. So that was an awesome feeling, but I persisted nonetheless. I ended up retaking my GRE, retook a couple more classes, and I did ask one thing that I think is really important. If you apply to grad school and they deny you, ask them why they denied you so you can improve on yourself and actually go after those specific things rather than just being like, oh, I wonder why they denied me. Let me go figure out what that might be and look like I'm a chicken with my head cut off just running around. No, ask them why they didn't accept you. For mine, it ended up being my GPA, and I was actually missing a prereq that I didn't even notice. So that was unfortunate, but went back, took those classes, got it all done. And then do you receive an acceptance denial by letter? I think they sent me I think it was an email, if I remember correctly. And then you can either just call them or email them. Especially Cal State, they are awesome. They are absolutely awesome. I'll get into that in a second. But yes, they do send you an acceptance or a denial letter. Some places are a little bit more upfront about exactly why they didn't accept you, and other places are just like, oh, okay, you got denied. That's it. But anyway, So I ended up moving out to California once I finally got accepted the second time, and had 2 years of graduate school along with COVID. And I just wanted to also add the very last bullet point on this slide. There are only 12 schools in the country that offer the Master of Science in Orthotics and Prosthetics. So it's pretty competitive. So I do like to warn people about that. That's another reason why I probably got denied that first time. It's very competitive. They're very small class sizes. You're talking 30 people or less. Cal State only accepts, I think, 24. I know Alabama only accepts, I think, 10 when I applied. So also just keep that in mind. So for all of you wondering what kind of prereqs there are, so you don't make the same mistake that I did, this is just for Cal State. Every school has different prereqs, but for the most part, they're relatively the same across the board. So they do require biology with lecture and lab, total 4 credits, chemistry with lecture and lab for 4 credits, can't speak, anatomy and physiology with lecture and lab as well, 4 credits. That's super, super, super important, which is why I put this picture here. This is not my class. This is just one that I stole off of the Cal State Instagram, but you can see all the bones and the muscles that are sitting on that front table. You have to know the origin, insertion, and action of every single muscle in the body. And that's a lot of memorizing, but it's actually much easier once you just kind of break it down. But that's really, really, really important. That's something I would love to stress is don't take your anatomy classes for granted and really learn the anatomy. So along with that, you're looking at physics with lecture and lab, psychology, abnormal psychology, which is the one that I missed, statistics. They do recommend ethics and business management because orthotic and prosthetic companies, there are quite a few what we call mom and pop places. And it's really helpful if you have that business management aspect under your belt. I do not have business management under my belt, but I'm doing just fine. So keep that in mind. You do have to have at least a 3.0 GPA, at least 40 volunteer hours before you apply, and then you do have to have GRE scores. They don't explicitly state what your GRE has to be because I don't think that they take that into account as much as your interview to actually get into the program. I think especially Cal State, that I think that's something that I really like about Cal State O&P is that they do an interview with you and they ask you kind of random questions. I remember the woman who interviewed me asked if I liked baking and I said, I love baking. And she was asking about my personal interests of what I like doing outside of orthotics and prosthetics and seeing how that relates to the field. And also just seeing how I can be talking to another person, because that's what it's like on a daily basis, is talking to different kinds of people. Now, the curriculum, once you actually get into the program, some of these are quick classes, other ones are pretty lengthy. You have soft good fitters, which is fitting like wrist braces, elbow braces for cubital tunnel syndrome, kind of like resting hand splints to prevent contractures. Anatomy, as I've said multiple times, material science. So you're learning about different kinds of foams, different kinds of plastics, different kinds of metal. And then you're looking at pathology, clinical evaluation, practice management, which is where that business management comes from, psychological aspects of disability, which is a very interesting class. And then we have to learn normal gait as well as pathological gait. And then the next few slides are also other courses, and I also have pictures with them. So this is an example of orthotic management of the upper limb. The picture on the left on your screen is it's what we call a cock-up splint. So it's for carpal tunnel, and it can also be for fractures as well. So usually if you have carpal tunnel, we'll usually just use what we call an off-the-shelf device, and because it's much cheaper, but we can make custom devices, which is what this one is. It was completely custom made for this patient in the video. And then the one on the right is actually a video. So we make interesting devices like this. So this is basically for somebody who no longer has that hand dexterity, usually due to a nerve problem in their arm. They do have to be able to extend their wrist to make the fingers work, but it allows them to actually grab items again. As you can see, her thumb kind of comes up and comes together with her 2 other fingers right there, right where it paused. So another class is orthotic management of the lower limb. So we take casts of people's legs, and then we end up actually pouring liquid plaster into that to make a positive mold of their leg. And then from that, we pull plastic, which is kind of like this second image here. So this first image on the far left is actually a patient I recently saw in my residency. They have a plantar flexion contracture of about 30-ish degrees and a knee flexion contracture of about 20 degrees. So I had that ankle doesn't move anywhere. It's completely fused. So with that patient specifically, I was making custom shoes for them to make sure that the shoe can accommodate their toes pointed down like that. And that was using fiberglass. The second picture is a brace that we would use for several different kinds of pathologies. Usually stroke patients, cerebral palsy, anybody who has any kind of weakness or deformity of their ankle or foot, we'll make that for them. And then this is an example of casting for a knee, ankle, foot orthosis, which is the ones I was telling you about, or kind of like the ones in Forrest Gump. Usually takes 2 people. You have to have somebody holding up the leg the whole way. And he's just using plaster bandages. So he wraps the whole leg. You have to rub it in a little bit to make sure all of it forms together. And then it doesn't show the very end, but that's him just kind of rubbing everything to make sure everything stays as one whole piece after we take it off. But that tube at the very beginning that you can see kind of running all the way down my leg and off the top of my toes, that's to get the orthosis off, or the cast off, I'm sorry. That's a running line in orthotics and prosthetics, is don't forget the cut strip, because if you forget the cut strip, you can't get it off of the person's body. Always remember the cut strip if you go into this field. Another class is orthotic management of the spine. So these are usually scoliotic patients. In the picture on the left, that's us casting. We had to put tarps all the way on the floor, and then we took brown paper and wrapped it around the whole room on the walls just to make sure we didn't get plaster absolutely everywhere. As you can see, it's very messy on the table. But this one, we're doing a casting for a clamshell brace, which is basically 2 pieces of plastic in the end that kind of form together that end up holding you up straight, and it stops you from moving medially or laterally. The picture in the middle it's a brace for people who need support. We want to decrease trunk flexion and also decrease the lateral movements of their trunk as well. Usually it has a bunch of covers on it, but this was just for a project, so we were just trying to learn the basic biomechanical principles of the brace. But this just keeps them upright, stops them from moving side to side. It's usually used for fractures of the spine, and depending on how high up the fracture is will depend on how tall the brace is as well. So if it's just down here in the lumbar spine, usually we won't need all of this. We'll kind of cut that down and it'll just stop about right at the thoracic region. And then the picture over here on the far right is just showing you all the fun drawings that we get to do. This was my favorite part. We got to measure what we call Cobb angles, which is measuring the angle of the scoliosis in the spine. So you measure the Cobb angle, and then you get to draw exactly how your brace would look on that patient, with different pads in different places. The dark spots here are pads, and then if you can see these little kind of windows, that's a window, so that would be an opening in the brace. And this is how we got graded on them, to see how accurately we put all the pads. Now for my favorite part are prosthetics. So we have prosthetic management of the upper limb. On the left there, that is somebody who would have a transradial amputation, also known as below elbow. So you're looking at an amputation about mid radius. They can be shorter, they can be longer. It just kind of depends on the patient and what happened. So this one actually has a harness that goes around the back and then under the armpit of the other side, and it's a body powered device. So you would have to move your body in certain ways to get this hook at the end to operate properly. And then there's a cable that connects all of that together. On the right here, this would be for a transhumeral amputation. So an amputation about, if you can see my cursor, about right where her shirt is. Again, can be shorter, can be longer, it depends on the patient. But what's really cool about Cal State's program is we have a huge lab, and they want us to be able to try these devices so we can understand what our patients are going through. I heard it so many times. I hear practitioners will say, oh, I understand what you're going through. And patients kind of look at you like, you don't know what I'm going through. You still have your arm. So this kind of gives a slight glimpse. And of course, you still don't understand, but it gives you a slight glimpse as to what these people are going through. And this is a similar harnessing technique where you have the socket that comes all the way down over the arm. And then this is a prosthetic elbow, the forearm, and then the what we call the terminal device. And then you have this cable that runs all the way up to the elbow, and it kind of runs behind her back, and then it connects to that harness that also goes over to the other armpit, as you can kind of see right here. Now, the other really fun part about prosthetic management of the upper limb is we get to work with what we call myoelectric devices. So we find different muscle bellies that we can pick up electronic signals. And you can see all of these ropes, and there's a sweatband. The sweatband is just holding on these little electrodes that you put on the bigger muscle bellies. And it actually detects those frequencies, and it sends it down so you can actually control the hand. So I am hooked up to this hand over here. So when I extend, it opens. When I flex my wrist, it closes, and I can open it really fast and it opens. And it usually works real time. There's usually not a huge delay, and you'll see that in a second as well. I'll show you this one more time. So that's teaching us how to do it. And then we actually have some patients who come in. So this is one of the patients who uses a myoelectric device, and he's been using it for several years. So he's an absolute pro at it. And he's just doing what we call box and blocks test. So it's an outcome measure to see how much the arm is benefiting him. So if he's getting a new arm, then we can use both arms side by side and see how many blocks he can put over onto the other side, back and forth. And that kind of shows us if our device is working better or not than his previous one. And those electrodes, let me pause it really quick. The electrodes that you saw in this video that were right here on my arm, they're just embedded into the actual prosthetic device, usually one on the lateral side of your arm and then one on the medial side of your arm. And then depending on the patient, if they don't have that musculature, we can also go a little bit more proximal on the arm as well, if needed, to pick up some of those extra signals. Then we also have prosthetic management of the lower limb as well. So on the far left is a transtibial prosthesis. That would be a below knee prosthesis. So somebody who's missing a portion of their leg between their knee and the rest of their foot, or their ankle, I guess technically. This is what we call a test socket. So it's a clear socket that we fit the patient with first. And that allows us to see A, how the fit is, B, if they have any pressure anywhere, C, if they can get it all the way down. That it tells us almost everything we need to know. And it's clear because we can see, it's nice to be able to see through it and be able to see where all the high pressure areas are versus the low pressure areas. And we can also heat up that plastic. If the patient is saying it all feels great, but man, it really hurts on this bone right here, I can take a blowtorch to it, heat it up, and I can literally take my finger. I always use silicone because it's hot, but take my finger and I can just push out that spot and make a relief for them. The middle picture is me and a couple students casting for an above knee prosthesis. We're using plaster again, and this one actually has a brim, which is kind of it basically just gives you the correct shape for what the proximal portion should be like for the trim lines. So that's another way that we can kind of get an idea of what the patients are going through and how invasive some of this stuff is, especially for above knee prosthetics. I always I always tell patients, I got this from my mentor actually. He always says, we're gonna get really personal, because part of that is grabbing onto their butt bone and feeling where that is, because that's very important regarding the socket for these prostheses. And the other part is you're putting your hand in areas that are very sensitive and very uncomfortable, but that's completely necessary for getting a perfect fit for these prostheses. On the far right, that's the same leg that you saw in the very first picture. It glows in the dark, which is really cool, and it has aliens abducting pizza, which is even cooler. But on this one, it has a pneumatic prosthetic knee. There are a bunch of different knees out there. We have weight activated ones that will lock out the moment that you put any weight on it. We have pneumatics, which is it works by expelling air and compressing air. And then we also have hydraulic knees that we'll also use. And then there are also microprocessor ones, which are like the really high-tech $40,000 knees that can do just about anything, that are absolutely cool. Another one of the classes is called subspecialties. You get to learn about a lot of different subspecialties. So on the far left, you can see that we had pediatric day. We had a bunch of kids come in. We got to cast them, see what it's like to work with smaller body parts, basically, because it is completely different from working with a grown adult. It's different working with a little tiny foot and being able to get the right alignment to aid in that the best functionality and the best alignment of their hind foot. We also have Animal O&P Day, which is that second picture from the left. We have different dogs come in and we get to cast them, and they teach us basically what's good in the cast and what's bad in the cast, and we can improve on that. I see somebody said animals. Yes. I would recommend you going onto the Instagram page, or Cal State Instagram page, because there's so many cool pictures on there. I have the Instagram link at the very end. But yeah, we make prosthetic. If you guys ever see those really cool videos of like an elephant walking with a prosthesis, that's our job. We make different prostheses for dogs, cats. I saw somebody who made a little like wheelchair device for a turtle that didn't have any legs anymore. And it was really cute. It was really sad, but super cute. But this field there's so many different avenues that you can go down. And that's what I really loved once I started doing more research into it. And the last one, I think we did a few other things in subspecialties, but these were the three main ones. The last one was making face masks for burn victims or fractures. So sometimes you'll see basketball players wearing a clear mask like right over their face, kind of similar to this one here that I'm circling, the red and blue one. It just prevents them from breaking their nose again, or if they had a burn accident, we apply pressure to that burn spot to prevent the scarring from kind of growing off of their face. It keeps it compressed and it aids in healing. So we got to learn what it's like to go through that. And I was the patient model for that day, and I had the greatest time of my life. So you can see up here, that's alginate that they're putting on my face. So you just lean back, get all the hairs out of your face. They actually pour it over your face. It ends up looking like this in the end, which is super scary, but it was a lot of fun. They leave your nostrils open. So that was the big thing, was make sure you don't put anything over the nostrils. Then we take it off. You have a full impression of my face, and then we fill it with plaster. And that's what you're seeing here. This is the plaster positive model of my face. As you can see, it looks just like me. Pretty. No, I'm just kidding. But that one was really fun. And with this project, they don't want us to just make a clear see-through face mask. They allowed us to do something fun and creative. So you can see all these different masks that everybody came up with, and we actually ended up having a competition. So that was a lot of fun as well. I think this might be the last class that I'm talking about. We have applied technologies. This is another class that we learned about a lot of different things. We learned about how to work with silicone, whether that be rolled silicone or pouring silicone to make a mold of something. We learned how to use CAD/CAM, which is how to manipulate a digital file, usually a 3-dimensional scan of some sort, and we can manipulate it however we want. We also learned about 3D scanning and also 3D printing. And once we learn about all of those, the next project that we get is to apply all of those technologies to something. And they leave it pretty vague. You can kind of do whatever you want. So we worked in teams of, I think, 4 or 5. And what my team decided to do is to make a shower leg prosthesis for amputees. Because that's one thing that is a common thread, a common problem, is that the shower legs that are on the market are $5,000 or more out of pocket. Insurance does not cover it at all. So we were like, well, I wonder if there's a way to make a kind of one size fits all prosthesis just for the shower. So we ended up making this part here. This white part is all plastic. We have a little, just a fabric band here and another fabric band here. We ended up buying this piece. This is just a pylon, basically a tube that connects to the bottom of the foot. This foot here is 3D printed. And if you can see this blue part on the bottom here, that's rolled silicone. So we applied that as well. This is just a foam cup. But in this picture, we also used a urethane. It's similar to silicone, but it was a liquid. So we ended up making what we call a distal end pad. It's basically a pad that just makes it really comfy at the end. So they're not having a lot of pressure on the end of their bone. We had a lot of fun with it. So we ended up adding some glow in the dark elements because we're like, okay, well, what if they want to get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom? They'll be able to find their leg if it glows in the dark. So we ended up making a glow in the dark soling with that silicone. And we also made a glow in the dark distal end cup with that urethane. So we had a lot of fun with that. And then it was also completely, what's the word I'm looking for? Completely like detachable. It ended up being it would fit into like a really small suitcase by the end, or like kind of like a travel toiletry bag. So you can put all these pieces inside of each other. And then if you wanted to go travel somewhere, you could always bring it with you. So you're also able to use the leg when you go travel. So typical day in the prosthetics and orthotics classes at Cal State, again, talking specifically about Cal State, we're typically in class about 8 hours per day. They do start very, very, very lecture heavy at the beginning. You're probably looking at 80% lecture, 20% lab for the first semester. And as time goes on, they give you a little bit more lab time because there's just not anything else that they can really teach you, and you learn a lot by using your hands. So second semester, you're looking at about 70% lecture, 30% lab. And by your third and fourth semester, your whole second year, it's much more lab heavy. That's when you get to do the applied technology and all the animal courses and working with different materials. So you're probably looking at maybe 30% lecture, maybe even a little bit less than that, and maybe about 70% lab. And what we get to do in lab is test out different things. So I'll show you Sydney first. Again, we want to know how patients are feeling about different. We want to be able to replicate the feeling of what it would be like if we were wearing prosthetic legs. So we actually ended up using these boots and attaching a tube to the bottom of this prosthetic foot. So you can actually, that is so, she didn't say a bad word there. But you get to learn how we might feel if we were missing our legs. And that still doesn't even give you the actual true feeling of what the patients are going through. But I mean, you can see in this video, she's walking very unstable. She's about to fall over and she has to grab onto something at the very end. That's how our patients feel every single day. So it kind of humbles you learning about all this stuff and being able to really get your own sensation for it. Another thing we do is use what we call the gait right mat. So as you walk, it detects all the ground reaction forces of each step, and it calculates a bunch of data, and then you can print it off at the end and see exactly, just look at all the data and analyze what you're looking for. If they have a longer step on one leg, if they're putting more pressure on the lateral border of their foot versus the medial border. I mean, it tells you just about everything. And then we end up getting silly with it, and we have somebody who does a handstand walk across the mat. And you can see down here that it's tracking each of her steps, her handprints going back and forth. And that's what the mat looks like. So it's just a little walkway. It's just a fake wood, and then you have a bunch of sensors here that go all the way down, and then a few cables that connect to the computer that it's connected to. So then after graduation, this was my first above knee prosthesis that I worked on in my residency. It was very challenging, but also very rewarding at the end. So for residencies, there are a few different options that you can do. You can go into a single discipline track where you do 1 year of orthotics first, complete that, and then you start 1 year of prosthetics after that. You can do a dual discipline, which is what I'm personally doing, a dual discipline track, which is 18 months of prosthetics and orthotics. That just depends on your, kind of like your learning style. If you do better learning one discipline at a time, then by all means take the 2 years. If you feel like you can handle having a mix of both and being able to kind of learn both at the same time, then you can definitely do the dual discipline. That also kind of depends on where you do your residency, because most residency sites will only offer you one track or the other. So for example, if you're going to go work at Hanger, which is one of the largest companies, orthotic and prosthetic companies in the United States, they only offer that single discipline track where you do 1 year of orthotics and 1 year of prosthetics. Not a lot of them do that dual discipline. Another track that you can also go on is you can always do research. We are dying to get more research into this field and getting more articles written and published. And then after you do your residency, and also during your residency, you have about 5 or 6 board exams that you have to take. So I have an exam coming up in October. That's one of my first written ones. And then I have 4 more after that. And they're written exams. We do simulation exams. Then we actually have one that you have to fly out to Florida for, where you're given a patient who acts like they have some kind of deficiency, and then you have to treat them properly and make sure that you're safe with them. And that's basically your final, like, yes or no, you can have your certification. And just to show you this, so this is a hydraulic knee that he has with what we call a cosmetic cover, just to make it look a little bit more normal below the knee. And then he loves Lakers, so he ended up getting a Lakers t-shirt laminated into his socket. And that's just all the way around for you so you can see it. All right, and then everybody's always wondering what the cost in return is like, and I completely understand why. First off, I want to start with Cal State is the cheapest and the best school to prepare you for the real world. There are so many people who have told me that they love Cal State students because we get the hands-on experiences, we get to work with real patients, we get a lot of lecture time, so we're kind of the perfect resident, so to speak. And again, it's the cheapest out of all of them, so that's even better. You're looking at approximately $30,000 per year, so you're looking at a total of $60,000 for both years total. Once you get into your residency, since you are still learning, they don't pay you the best. You're looking at approximately $40,000. That varies depending on what residency site you go to. It can be a little bit more, it can be a little bit less, but that's usually about the average. It's about $40,000. As you get your certifications and you pass your exams, usually most places will start bumping up your pay. So you pass your first exam, let's say they give you another $5,000 for the year. Pass another one, they might give you another $5,000. So they slowly work up as you increase your competency. Let's see. And then once you're actually a certified prosthetist and orthotist, the pay completely varies depending on what state you're in. In California, you're looking at about $80,000. You also can get raises and bonuses along the way too. Of course, the longer you stay with the company, the more they're going to appreciate you and end up paying you more money to stay with them. And then the more specializing you do will also increase that pay as well. If you find that one thing that you really love, definitely dive deep into it. And if you get really, really, really good at it, and you have patients traveling from all over the country, like one of my bosses is doing right now, then that pay can go up significantly because you are a huge asset to the company. And I like to add this quote at the very bottom because it's been very relevant to me today. If you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. And I can absolutely attest to that. I of course hate waking up because I'm not a morning person, but the moment that I see my first patient, it is like a light bulb has turned on and I am just loving working with them. I love making people happy. I love making people in less pain and gaining more mobility. And that's about all I have for you guys. I put my LinkedIn here if you wanted to link in with me. I also have my email address on here as well. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. And then the Cal State Instagram is CSUDH-OPS, that's Orthotics Prosthetics. So definitely go follow them on Instagram. They have so many different pictures and videos and highlights at the top of their page. And if you ever have any questions about the school and what their curriculum is going to be like, again, you can always contact me, or you can always contact their Instagram, or call the actual office themselves. We are an off-site campus, if that might be something that you guys recognize from the background here. So we are located in Los Alamitos, and we're in like a little business park. And I think they're planning on moving that soon, but it should be relatively in that same area. Other than that, do you guys have any questions?
First of all, people kind of think about questions. Yes, thank you, Laura, for your presentation. It was very informative. I'm sure people learned a lot. I'm probably surprised to see some of the great things that you guys do. I know, we've talked and I'm familiar with the program at Dominguez Hills and stuff like that. But even just seeing some of these videos, I'm like, oh, this is top notch, even more so than what I even thought in my mind was going on over there. So it was really good to see. And not surprising whatsoever, but really cool to see.
Good.
So before we get into our next topic, I just want to check in to see, does anybody have any questions for Laura at all? Or even if you thought about something, last minute for John that you want to go back to, I just want to take maybe about a couple minutes out to see.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I don't know how quick it is, but for someone who does orthoses, how often do they work with professionals such as an OT or a PT?
All the time. Yeah, we usually work in an allied health team. So if the patient needs an orthotic device, they go to their doctor. They have to get a prescription. So we cannot prescribe anything because it is just a master's degree. They have to go to their doctor, get a prescription, then they come to see us. We give them the device, but then after that, it is their responsibility to go see occupational or physical therapy to better train them with the device, build up muscle mass, work on range of motion, all that kind of different stuff. So it's a little bit going back and forth. And sometimes we'll even have therapists who end up calling us and say, hey, I just don't think this brace is working well. I think that maybe we would want to go this direction. And that's completely fine. That's just part of the process of trying to figure out what's best for them.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? And if not, no pressure.
I'll go
I
ahead.
ask one question.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna ask, what do you least about your work?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. What do I like least? Dealing with insurance. That is the biggest thing. I have patients who will come in and they say, oh, I saw this guy on the internet and he had this leg that did, all of these cool things. And then they say, I want this. And I say, I'm sorry, your insurance won't cover that. And then they say, okay, well, how much will it be out of pocket? And I say, you're looking at about $20,000+. So that's the biggest part. It's really a downer sometimes, and you have to really fight for your patients. We can request authorization for something really expensive, and if they deny it, we can always appeal it. But at the end of the day, it is the insurance's decision on what that patient gets.
And before we go to the next question, John, I would like to propose that same question to you from an OT standpoint.
What I don't like about my job?
Or yeah, just overall within like OT, I'm sure you probably have some similar insurance doubts, but if you can elaborate maybe on your take.
I agree with Laura. I think that's why I do like my job, and I recognize how lucky I am that I'm working in a nonprofit. If you do what Laura does or what I do or PT, any of that stuff in general, you'll have to deal with insurance in that they dictate how much we get paid. So if they don't have insurance, then usually they don't see you unless they go cash pay. So it's just something to think about, in that Laura and I want the best for the client, but when they come, there is a middleman that's involved. And so the better the place you work at, the more flexibility you might have, or you might want to work for a company that aligns more with what you like.
Thank you for that, John. And then I think somebody else had a question. We'll go ahead and take that question before we move forward.
It's probably me. So just to both Laura and John, both of you are working in professions essentially where maybe someone has gone through some sort of serious injury or trauma where they're not able to really fully function as they might have used to. So being able to see their progression and to essentially get their functionality and mobility back, what kind of feeling is that for you? How, like, is that like the biggest motivator in a way?
Laura, why don't you go?
Yes, the short answer is absolutely. I actually welcome you to follow me on LinkedIn because I just actually posted something about that. I had a patient come into my office. He was a below knee amputee, and he already had a leg. He's been wearing a leg for maybe 3 to 5 years. And we made a new leg for him, and he goes to sit down and he just flexes his knee, puts his leg on the ground. And next thing I know, he's crying because he could finally bend his knee to 90 degrees and even past 90 degrees with the leg on. So it's those little things that we really take for granted on a daily basis that you're constantly reminded of, like, be grateful for the little things in life. Be grateful that you wake up in the morning and you don't have to put on legs to go to the bathroom. So you should be so, like, happy to know that your arms, your fingers function just as they should function. I mean, it's very rewarding.
I completely agree with you, Laura. I think a lot of us who go into this field, we probably do see some big injuries. And what we get to do is get them back to doing the things that we take for granted. Like a stroke can knock you out, where some people have a stroke and they come back 100%. Some people have a stroke and they will never, ever walk again. And so, you know, how you're part of the process, and if they improve, it means a lot. Yeah, you know, I think having clients kind of cry in front of you, break down, appreciate you, it's always good. But when you know you played a hand in it, yeah, I think it's always very motivating. And especially for Laura, like if she's designing, it also is a part of how you express yourself if you're designing things. So I think that is also another nice angle about things. When you can control what you do for work and you can kind of spin a little bit creativity, however you want to define that, that's kind of increased longevity and just working somewhere.
Thank you both for those answers. So what we'll do, I know it's like a lot that we're covering, but we definitely want to see about how these two professions, right, plus some, right, we talked about ergonomics as well too, tie into this realm of esports, because the whole theme of this conversation is to really just think about from a kinesiology perspective or a health and wellness perspective overall, but more specifically like kines majors, how we could begin to think about other graduate school and career opportunities, because we sometimes are kind of like one way in our thinking. Sometimes we just think strength and conditioning, physical therapy, athletic training. right? But as you can see, there's so many different lanes that we could go into. And one now that is actually growing and increasing in popularity is esports. So we asked before if we had any gamers, and I do remember some people, talk about some of the games that they're interested in playing and things like that. So John and I have a little presentation that we'll show to you guys. And then we're also going to tag Laura into the conversation because we all have had experience talking about this topic within our professions and within our educational background. So John, I do know you are having a little bit of trouble with the Zoom and screen sharing. So
Right.
I'll share it for you. And then let's see if between the two of us, we can hopefully can knock out your portion in 10. I can knock out mine in 10, and then we can have like 10 minutes for questions.
In less. Let's do it.
All right, cool. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna share screen. It's definitely the wrong button. Let me try again. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
All right, well, let us start from the beginning.
Awesome.
Sorry. Okay. Cool, let's do it.
So I think after Laura and I spoke about specifically what we do, Elise and I are now talking about just kind of like the potential just for healthcare professionals in general going into esports. So hopefully with this presentation, you guys can kind of think about, well, how can we translate this into more of a electronic format, or also in a esport, a video game sport that's slowly becoming recognizable, and just the potential there is in it. Esport is defined as some type of competitive or organized video gaming. There's definitely lots of types of games. First-person shooters, you got RPGs, you got like mass online. And what we want to think about is there's different tiers. I'm casual, but there's actually high schools. They have their own league, college league definitely, and then there's also professional league. So it mimics. You got to think about it. It does mimic other physical sports. Next slide. So I wanted to focus, I guess, on the collegiate sport, esports side of things. Through the NACA, there are 175 officially recognized collegiate varsity esport programs. So that's a lot of colleges out there that are officially recognized, and they're competing. They've got the coaches, they do have scholarships. And then separately, there's about 315 schools that are active in another separate bracket called the TESPA, and they compete in the league to win prize money. Next slide. And I borrowed this from a website, and it's basically breaking down esports is something that you cannot deny. So again, this is 2018. So it's slightly dated, maybe 3 years, right? It's shown in the millions of views. So if you look at NCAA, Final Four, you look at Super Bowl, then you look at one specific game, which is League of Legends, LOL, right? It hits what, 200 million, at least 2018. So you can see the reach that it has. Next slide. And it also correlates with the scholarship. So if you look at esports in general, the scholarship that they've been tracking, it's grown exponentially, right? I'm sure it's way more than 15 million now. Next slide. And this is just one of the leagues I was speaking about. This is in the thousands. How many players they have registered in the league. So it's definitely growing. I mean, that's more than 20,000. Yep. And so I just want you guys to think about that, because there's that many people involved in this sport as healthcare professionals. I don't even care what you are. There is a lot of potential for us to go in there and help them out. I've got some fun facts. 180, that's the beat per minute a gamer's heartbeat can reach during play. 400 is the approximate number of movements an esport athlete conducts per minute while gaming. So 400 clicks a minute, or 400 clicks, or kind of like keypad actions. 150 milliseconds slower when you're in your 30s versus in your 20s for a game like StarCraft. And the average cost of creating a college esport program is about 30,000, and I think that's still accurate. Now we can talk a little bit about, I'm just going to skim over the injuries because I know that Elise has a little bit more here. But just like any other sport, I mean, a lot of these people, for us, maybe for the audience, you guys might view as, oh, they're just gaming. It quickly becomes not just your interest or hobby when you're doing it 10 hours, right? It's almost like a job. I just said 300 to 400 actions per minute. So that would be like you clicking nonstop as fast as you possibly can. You can see how that can lead to a lot of overuse. And I really like my third point that I put there. It's contrary to classic sports. Esport players, I guess their lifestyle is more comparable to a very busy office worker, and thus you want to look at what type of injuries. They're probably a little bit more related to someone that's like an office worker. And you just read it over, but we can go to the next slide. This is also another slide that I pulled. This one's slightly outdated. I know that Elise has more of the updated one, but you can see the most common injury or symptom that they report is eye fatigue, right? And you hear the whole thing about blue light and blue light filters. After that is back and neck pain. And after that, again, if you're clicking a few hundred times a minute, if you keep that up for 10 hours, you're definitely going to have wrist and hand injuries if you're not taking care of yourself. Next slide. And I think this is one of my final slides. I just want you guys to know, with that kines background, there's a lot of options that you can go. And I believe the ones I've listed all have potential to go into esports. So again, I don't want you guys to always focus on specifically what it is, what that is, but just overall understanding that there's potential to go. Hope that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you, John. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to share another screen. I just have to kind of transition to pull it up. Give me another second.
Exactly, Laura. Laura, I think you would be a pretty good hand therapist if you're an OT. I can tell.
All right. Can everybody still see the screen? All right. Perfect. So to kind of just continue and piggyback from where John left off. So he talked about it from the collegiate aspect, and then I'm going to kind of continue his conversation and talk about like the market and just overall the different possibilities that we could really get into. And I'll have some examples at the end of actual jobs for you all to see. So when we look at it, the market is really growing, just as he said. So one thing I would like to note is that in 2017, the International Olympic Committee actually accepted esports as a sporting activity, which is huge, right? And then in addition to that, in 2018, esports made its debut at the Asian Games. So right now, when it came to this competition, they weren't actually able to medal and compete for medals, but they were able to debut it as a sport to show what the possibilities are and to actually introduce it. But what they're talking about doing now is around the 2024, more likely 2028 Olympic Games, actually allowing players to be able to compete to actually win medals. So that's going to be actually something really fun to see and kind of experience. Again, there's 175 officially recognized varsity esports programs, just as John mentioned, and a slew of additional collegiate esports varsity leagues and teams. And so CSULB is included in that, as well as CSU Dominguez Hills, which is another school we talked about before. And the reason why I have it in quotes for officially recognized is because basically what that means is that these universities or colleges have a coach and some type of scholarship along with it, right? So you have opportunities just like with NCAA players and so forth to get sponsored to go to the school. So it also comes with a little tuition assistance, right? So that's what it means by officially recognized. But even schools that are not officially recognized, I'll use, I believe, CSULB and CSUDH as examples. They don't offer scholarships for it, and they don't, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think they officially have coaches. They have like advisors, and they have teams within it. But basically officially recognizes those two package deals together. But this is important because since so many schools have this, whether it's officially recognized or whether it's an association or just a club, The goal is that they want to market their investment. And that's where the big money starts coming in, right? Because if you're going to invest money into something you're promoting, you want it to make it last. And the only way you can make it last is to continue to hone it and continue to build upon it. So just as a basketball team or like even golfers or things like that at these universities still get an opportunity to see a strength and conditioning, an athletic trainer, a PT, you know what I mean? These students who are student athletes just within the realm of esports are going to have that same opportunity. And so UCI, they have an entire, I believe it's 3,500 square foot arena that's dedicated to esports. So when I say marketing your investment, they're not going to build this big old arena, you know, without putting money into it, but also without putting other investments into it. Those investments meaning us, right? Same thing as other schools doing it as well. Dominguez Hills, they are in the process of curating a lab right now that they're going to launch, I believe, in October. And it's just schools all around, but these are just some in California. And then again, Cal State Long Beach, we have an association too. So the reality, just as John mentioned, these are the updated numbers, right? So this is from 2019. And so we're able to do a little compare and contrast. So what he presented, we believe might just be a few years back, maybe about 2015, but this is from 2019. So as you can see, there's a vast increase. We are now at 56% in regards to eye fatigue. So you have eye fatigue from looking at screens so long, from blue light. When you think of us as students, we sit on the laptop for Zoom class, we sit on the laptop to do papers, homework, things along that nature. But then if gaming is your hobby, you then have that same blue light radiation from the screen if you're playing via PC, right? Or even if you're playing, you know, when watching TV, if you're using joysticks or if you're using any type of other controller. 42% report back and neck pain, 36% wrist pain, and 32% hand pain. But unfortunately, only 2% are likely to seek medical treatment. Again, this is where we will very soon come in, and currently people are looking towards people like us, kinesiology majors, occupational therapists, and I'll even talk about a little bit with O&P, the possibilities with that too. But we really just kind of want to paint the picture for you all to see that there is a market, and these are jobs that people are looking to fulfill because they realize, again, we need to protect our investment. So there are professional teams now that actually have strength and conditioning specialists on their paid roster. They also have athletic trainers. They also have physical therapists. If you look on YouTube right now, there's a lot of professional teams that will actually show them going to the gym. They hated it at first, but they're also seeing a difference in their game. And it's for some of those same reasons that John mentioned before. They're very symbolic to sedentary employees, right? So those same neck pains, wrist pains, all those things that you're going to feel as a gamer, you're going to feel it twice if that's also your profession or if your profession is a student at this point in time. So that's the reality of it all. And so when you look at this picture, it shows you the need. I'm sure all of us could look at this picture and see a lot of things wrong, right? And if they don't have issues now, they're going to have issues later. So whether it's people who utilize a claw grip for a mouse or for a controller, whether it's posture, we see the skeleton version here, right? But if you look at this picture right above, he's almost identical. You know, we have a professional gamer here who has kinesio tape on right now. So it's just like, there are a lot of things that a lot of aches and pains that you could feel when gaming, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that it always has to be continuous. If you have people who are physical therapists, occupational therapists, personal trainers, and things like that, just really helping these people, gamers, hone in on their craft, mind, body, and soul, right? Because we have to take care of each and every aspect. So job opportunities. So even though we painted this picture for you all, we really want to show you how it really is a market and get you all to think about other ways in which you could possibly market yourself, or maybe even marry your two loves. So if you have a love for gaming and a love for kinesiology or health and wellness, it is a possibility. So if you are interested in this position, I have to break the news. This job posting has expired. When I first pulled it, it was active, but now it's like expired. So I'm sorry about that. Nonetheless, at Irvine Valley College, they have an esports performance specialist. So I highlighted some key things: minimum qualifications. So you just need a bachelor's degree and a little bit of experience. In short, responsibilities, I highlighted some key things here. So lead instructional lectures for players, coaches, and team managers. Be a resource for players and coaches to develop their mindfulness and wellness habits, and tailor wellness coaching and instruction to the typical needs of esports competitors. I definitely believe that anybody on a Zoom call right now could definitely, with time, if you don't feel creating something like this with time, post-graduation, I definitely believe you'll have that confidence to be able to attack and confidently gain a position such as this. Some other additional skills required are noted here, but a lot of common things. And then as you can see right on the bottom, where the money resides, right? So it's showing you, even though it's a part-time position, it's about $40 to $80 per hour. So that's just part-time. And it lets you know that as their program grows, they're also probably going to need the opportunity to bring in either another part-time person or make this part-time person eventually full-time, because their growth is eventually going to be our growth, right? Because it's that whole need and demand type thing. And so here's another one. It shows you a little bit of versatility. This is something in Dallas, Texas. So if anybody is originally from Texas or wants to move or doesn't want to pay, you know, the high price rent of Southern California living, this one is a fitness head trainer in Esports. So it's for champions of longevity. It's a little small, but I wanted to kind of get everything in here for you all. So as you can see here, it is a full-time position. And it states that the esports trainer will work in close partnership with other esports trainers to develop our fitness program. As far as the responsibilities, you'll conduct service appointments. Of course, this is other stuff here. I'm just kind of jumping into the meat of it all, right? And so you have conduct service appointments with members, which includes body fat analysis, nutritional counseling, proper use of fitness equipment, and proper form of exercise. This is all in our wheelhouse. Another thing, customized fitness programs for our members. And basically this will also include educational guidance in regards to like nutrition, cardiovascular exercise, resistance training, and other programs. Develop individualized exercise programs consistent with our members' personal fitness and exercise goals. Continually monitor and assist members to ensure proper form is used in performing exercises, and advise members on ways to achieve their fitness goals. Again, this is what we do, right? As community majors and even as people within health and wellness overall. Requirements, some of the essential requirements: CPR, AED, a degree, the ability to teach a certain curriculum and facilitate a lesson plan, which are skill sets that we can all gain if we don't already have them now. And just a solid understanding of not just health and wellness, but also esports. So this is an awesome way to merge the two loves that you have together. And I believe this might be my last slide. I kind of wanted to breeze through it. So yeah, it just lets you know that the possibilities for growth are out there, and it is truly limitless. So it's not that we're hating on physical therapy or hating on athletic training. This whole event is just to expose our mind and get our wheels turning in different ways of how we can maybe take something else that we love or a character trait about ourselves, right? Laura talked about is a sense of empathy that you have to have. We're actually both occupational therapy and O&P, but there also are other ways in which you could take maybe personal traits or personal things that you care about. Because she said that there was the aspect of like art and design and she really liked to. And so she's able to still have those characteristics in our in our current job now and merge that together. And so that's what we really just want you all to kind of see. These are my references here if you ever want to read the articles in which some of the data was pulled from. But I'm going to stop sharing because I definitely know we are kind of getting short on time. We have about maybe 15 minutes, but I wanted to open up the floor for questions, concerns that you guys might have. And Laura, if you don't mind, I would also like to see if you could maybe touch upon from the O&P perspective, like the adaptive sports, because I believe that is a lane as well too, or even like another subspecialty, because I believe you mentioned subspecialties now with like animals and different things, but you can touch upon it way better than I can. But in regards to somebody who may have a limitation, right? How do we get somebody who doesn't necessarily have full function of their thumb or all of their fingers, right, to be able to use a control? So O&P is all about creativity. And so there are lanes in that as well. So as people come up with questions, I'll let you unmute, Laura, so you can kind of like touch upon that too, because I do know we've had talks about this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I realized from your presentation, John's presentation, is carpal tunnel is going to be a very common thing in esports. That's going to be, you're going to come see me, you're going to want to brace. That, and then same thing with back braces. Low back pain, you might end up getting a compression fracture of some sort, and I would be the same person that you would come see. But regarding adaptive sports, there are just so many different avenues that you can go down. I'm not familiar with actual professions within adaptive sports, but they're always looking for volunteers, and I'm always telling my patients to look into adaptive sports. If you know, they come to me and they say, oh, I can't play volleyball anymore. I'm missing a leg. How am I going to play volleyball again? I'm like, okay, A, you're still going to be able to play. And B, they make adaptive sports as well. So they make sitting volleyball. They make sled hockey, which is literally where you sit in a sled that has a blade underneath it. And then you use like hockey sticks to move yourself around, and then you use it to slap the puck around too. And it's actually really, really, really cool. I suggest you to go look that up. But they're always looking for volunteers, and there has to be somebody behind that. I just don't know what their title is, but there's definitely somebody, the ringleader who's putting all of that together. And then regarding adaptive devices, I mean, again, the world is your oyster. We have these labs at work that allow you to make whatever you want to make. So if somebody comes in and they need something to help with, I don't know, with hand dexterity, then we can make something like that. We also make a bunch of adaptive devices. So like different hands for rock climbing, or different feet for rock climbing, and different things for swimming. I mean, there's just so many different things that go into my field, and also overlap with a bunch of different professions as well. So like I said, you're always working in an allied health team. You're always working as a team. I'm always working with people like John, and John's always working with people like me, saying, hey, we need something different, or hey, they're stronger now. I think that we can upgrade them to a better knee, because they can finally use that musculature to control it properly. Regarding esports specifically, I'm not positive about what exactly is out there, but like I said, that I feel like that's going to become a much larger thing as esports continues to grow, and as people that have certain disabilities, if they need to use a controller, they're going to want different devices that can control that controller for them, or learn different ways that they can utilize other objects to perform those functions as well.
Well, thank you for that. But yeah, overall, if anybody has any questions for any of us, really, as we begin to wrap things up, like John mentioned in the beginning, he and I work closely together in regards to health and wellness in esports at another university. And so we do a lot of things that were actually mentioned in that job description, for those 2 job descriptions that we talked about. So if that's something that you guys want to talk further about personally, or even on this call, or whether it's about occupational therapy, OMP, ergonomics, anything, we definitely have time for questions. But overall, we hope you guys did enjoy this event. And I'll just open up the floor for anybody. Questions, comments, concerns, anything.
I have a question. I know you guys have one like research that you guys have near CSU Dominguez Hill. Are you guys gonna make more as you guys expand or become more successful?
Can you confirm who your question is directed to? Are you referring to?
Laura Coleman.
So I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I'm answering the right question. Are you asking if we're continuing research, or what my research was in graduate school?
What your research was in graduate school.
So I wanted to originally, before COVID happened, I wanted to work on different outcome measures to determine dynamic balance in amputees using what we call the Y balance test. Due to COVID, we weren't allowed to work with human beings for our research. So I ended up switching it to determining if hamstring flexibility is a determining factor of future injury for lacrosse athletes or other cleat-based athletes, because I played lacrosse in my undergrad. So that was something that I noticed people were getting just so many injuries and like repetitive injuries. So I was like, well, I wonder if hamstring flexibility, if there's any correlation with that. I didn't find any correlation, but I definitely think that that's something that would be interesting to continue looking into.
I think to add on to your hamstring theory, sometimes there might be like overextension, because you know how's it? I don't know how it goes, but overextension of ligaments and muscles, it just like stretches like rubber bands. And it rips, I guess. But hopefully that doesn't happen. That's why you just gotta make them stronger, right? And then once you flex, they don't like it's just bigger and it's more flexible, I guess.
That's why
Like
they go
once you
see John.
eat, what was it?
I said that's why they go see John or a physical
That's right.
therapist.
Thank you. That's why you happy. Thank
Anybody else have any other questions before we begin to wrap things up? All right, if not, that will basically conclude our first session, right, of the semester. So this is actually cool. We hope you guys liked it. If you guys did, I would love to see, I don't know, like, if you did, can we get like a thumbs up? Would you guys like to see more items like this? Okay, all right, cool. All right, this is really good for us to know, especially as an executive committee, because the content that we curate for you guys, we put a lot of thought into it, but we want to make sure it's something that you all are interested in. So we found this of interest, but wanted to make sure that we're hitting our target audience, right, which is all of us really right on the head. So thank you so much to Laura. Thank you so much to John. Laura, thank you for also providing your contact information. John, if you're comfortable with it, I know you're on Discord. Are you open with sharing like your Discord information or any contacts like that?
I don't remember my Discord on top of my head.
Okay, no worries. I know we're struggling with that Discord thing, you and I. All right, well, thank you all very much. May you all have a great evening, and we did it in good time in 6:56. We had it from 5 to 7. So thank y'all. May y'all have a great night, and we will see y'all for our next event next week, which will be with Dr. Cotter, Dr. Schick, and Dr. Escobar, where we will be speaking to them regarding some of their past professional career in graduate school and doctoral school experiences, right? We know them as teachers, but we want to get to know them on another level from things that they did that helped develop them into the great teachers that they are. So they'll be talking to us about some other things that they did that could potentially spark our interest for future career goals for ourselves. So thank you all very much. May you all have a blessed night.